Good morning, and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester, a congregation of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your identity, and your hopes for our world are welcome here. So right after the service today, or if you're online, right after the service driving over, you can join us outside in the upper parking lot for the return of our annual tradition, the Maypole. You might want a light jacket or an umbrella or grab a spot under the overhang because we're doing it anyway. We decided there's no lightning, there's no severe weather, there's no blizzard. We're not chancing it on postponing. So a little light rain, we're going for it. Happy spring, here we are. That's good. So you can join us out there. There'll be ribbons for children or adults to grab and instructions for how to do it, or you can observe on the side as well. All are welcome. So Kim Edson has an announcement this morning for our new monthly Justice Partner for the month of May.
This month, we are celebrating Pride. It made my heart happy to see this rainbow chalice cloth. Yes, okay. I am so touched and happy that this month's charitable contribution will go to P-Fund. I want to tell you a little bit about P-Fund. It was established in 1987 in response to the AIDS crisis. It was one of the first philanthropic organizations for Minnesota that supported the LGBTQ communities. This fund has been near and dear to my heart for many years. I used to contribute to that instead of United Way back when I lived in Hennepin County. And it helped to support and grow LGBT community organizations, not just in Minnesota, but South Dakota, North Dakota, the upper Midwest. One of the things that happened in the late 90s is Darrell Waters and Mary Wallace established a Southeast Minnesota scholarship fund for LGBTQ students. This fund also reflects the shift in the organization to developing leadership skills for LGBT community so that our communities can continue to be visible, supported, and celebrated. Thank you for your generosity to P-Fund.
So half of our offering collection for the month of May will go to support P-Fund. You can give online or as the plates pass or at the boxes at the side of the sanctuary. Thank you for your generosity. This Wednesday evening, I invite you to a special forum down in the Commons or online through Zoom with special guest, the Reverend Harlan Limpert. Harlan is the former Chief Operating Officer of our National UU Association and has worked with an interfaith clergy coalition for end-of-life options with dignity around the country, including here in Minnesota. So you can come to learn about current work that's happening in Minnesota toward expanding end-of-life care and options. You can join us again in person or online. That's this Wednesday night at 6:30. All are welcome. And finally, much gratitude to the auction planning team and all who participated online throughout the week and in person last night. We had a multi-age festive event with fellowship and ice cream and kids joyfully running around with their minister dad's bitter paddle, just spitting on things. But I'm pleased to report a wonderful success for both our goals. So we raised over $4,000 for our charitable partner, Possibilities. Well done. And we surpassed our goal for raising over $29,000 for the life of the church. So thank you for your generosity. So if you have questions, the auction team will be around after service as well. There's a table in the lobby. There's also pickup items for the silent auction down in the Commons. If you have any questions, you can also contact the office. So I invite you to take a breath and settle in here with these words from the 1870s from our minister, the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together. The choir is going to lead us in this song at some point. Joe will invite you to sing along as well. As we prepare for coming of age later this month, we're excited to have our coming of age youth and their mentors light our chalice over these weeks. Riley Thompson and Laurel Podolke Smith will light our chalice.
At this moment of ending, may there be a good word, a blessing to help us remember what we have so often forgotten. May the message we need be gently spoken, held in the spaces in ourselves. The fibers that hold all we need to maintain our gentleness, courage, and our hope. At this moment of ending, may the goodness we wish for ourselves and each other, this community, ecosystem, and planet, become such part of us that we cannot tell where the blessing ends and we begin.
Holding tight to the string of your kite. So children, you can actually come right back on up. I was trying to tell them, but they're like, what? I'm supposed to go sit down. So just watch out for the microphones, please, friends. Over here. Well, I am not one to get choked up, but that was pretty stinking cute. Thank you all for singing this morning, and adults too. You were very adorable. So this is one of my favorite days, like, ever of the year, is Maypole Sunday. Yay, we're all so excited. And one of the things that I love about it so much is all of the colors. And when I say rainbow, can I hold your shark? Can he help me tell the story? Okay, all right, you're going to put him away. All right. So part of that is just the colors. And we see rainbows a lot, and I don't know about you, but I love rainbows. So what do you think when I talk about a rainbow, what do we think of? Maypole? Rain? Spring? LGBTQ plus, yep. What? Hope. And one thing that we talk a lot about with the kids is the 7 principles with the rainbow, right? We have our kids' principles that so nicely correspond to the colors of the rainbow. And we have maypoles, little maypoles like this. And these kind of serve a dual purpose, right? Because we talk about maypoles and we talk about the 7 principles when we talk about these. Well, what I love about this is the rainbow signifies so many different things. And one of those things we're talking about this month, like Kim mentioned, was the P Fund and the, what do they call it? The alphabet mafia, LGBTQAI plus, and all those identities that people have. Because we're talking about being inclusive for all people, and that doesn't matter what gender, what race, what heritage, what culture. We want to be a church for all people. And not all churches are necessarily for all people. So today's story is a church for all, and it's specifically about being that welcoming, radically welcoming congregation that has room for everybody. And this book actually won a Stonewall Award. For those of you who are familiar, it's Kim knows what I'm talking about, for its inclusivity of LGBTQIAI plus. Oh, too many when I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. So I'm going to read today's story. You'll be able to look up there and see the pictures. It was written by Gail E. Pittman and illustrated by Laura Fournier. So, Sunday waking. Day is breaking. Kind of wish it looked like this here with the sun, right? Let's go to our church for all. There's flowing all around. Come and enter our church for all. Weak and all embracing, and that spirit gracing. Each one exists at our church for all. Bodies wriggling, mommies reading, children giggling, nice job, nice job. Daddies pleading, toddlers flaying. Oh, no babies wailing, but there's always room at our church for all. Hearts believing, and more important, hearts accepting. Feel the Spirit. Can you hear it? It is here at our church for all. Do you think we have a church for all? Yeah. Yes. All right. Austin will now play the children's benediction, and please be careful, and I'll meet you over there.
On a steamy Saturday in August 1970, 5 teenage cousins were allowed an unsupervised Manhattan adventure via multiple forms of non-air-conditioned public transportation. The final stop that afternoon was Greenwich Village, intended by the 2 urbane Long Island cousins, no doubt, to startle the sensibilities of the 3 small-town girls. I was intrigued and found the village gritty, vibrant, and beautiful in its urban way. Different from Midtown Manhattan and Fifth Avenue, certainly, but clearly a neighborhood with its own vibe, cohesiveness, and personality. I am certain I was entirely unaware of the nearby Stonewall Inn or what had transpired there only a year before. Fast forward 46 years, if you can fast forward that long, when 2 of these cousins went again to Greenwich Village for some jazz at the Village Vanguard. Since we had not needed our allotted hour to find a parking place, we had some extra time. My cousin asked me if I wanted to see the Stonewall Inn, which was just around the corner. I was pleased that he had brought it up, since he and I did not agree on marriage equality or many LGBTQ issues. We walked a couple blocks to Stonewall, which is sort of a nondescript, brick-faced storefront mid-block. Nevertheless, it was a shrine, sacred ground marked with a National Historic Register plaque. A spot, like others in this country and around the world, where mistreated people decided they'd had enough abuse, enough disrespect. What occurred there in June 1969 was a fight for dignity, respect, and even life itself. In 1970, I had no idea about Stonewall, that a rebellion had taken place just a couple blocks from where we were marveling at the funky hippie shops and flipping through albums in a rather chaotic record store, hoping in vain that the next store would have air conditioning or at least a fan. Such unwitting privilege we had. At the same time, the residents of this neighborhood had no idea of the battles, judicial and otherwise, that were going to be necessary over the next 5 decades to secure their basic human rights. And sadly, their rights are still not assured in the long run. During Stonewall, a friend of mine was then a young priest at the nearby Episcopal church. According to his wife, several of the activists came to the church to ask if they could meet there to plan their response and their next steps. In deciding what to do, he called a senior priest who was out of town, and he was told that he should do whatever he thought was right. And he did. And he allowed the activists a safe space to gather. Maybe that seemed like a normal gesture at the time, but it may have been a very significant step in the overall scheme of things. Whatever steps we take along the way in the service of justice may or may not seem consequential at the time, but they may be a turning point. The important thing is that we take the step, make the offer, march in the street, provide the necessary support. We are all in this together, and the work continues.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. I invite you to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. It's our time to pause amidst the busyness of our lives, to slow down enough to consider the beauty that is here all around us, and to open a space for listening and love. Here we honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Cynthia Dalby, serving as our caring coordinator, arranging care for our members and friends in need. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. These last 2 years have taken a lot out of us. They have taken a lot from us. If during this time of increasing needs in our lives, you are experiencing challenges, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. Many of us may need additional care, whether it be personal pastoral care or other assistance, and we encourage you to reach out to Reverend Luke or myself with that request. Today's flowers are shared by Jay Smith in memory of his brother Mickey Smith, and Stephanie Podolki in honor of Mike Podolki, our UU pole master. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person here has a value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing sadness, illness, or loneliness. May the strength and love in our congregation help guide you. We revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. May all of us find love, hope, joy, and healing strength in this community. Please hold Heather Hansen in your hearts. Last night, as she was walking out of the door to come to the UU auction, she unfortunately missed a step, went down, and as a result has a broken fibula. She spent the evening in the emergency room and will now be recovering for the foreseeable future. This is a disappointing injury for her, as she has had many races and trail runs scheduled for summer. We send her healing thoughts as she recovers. And we hold Steve Smith and family in our hearts. Steve has been hospitalized for a few days with a vertebrae fracture after a fall and continued struggles with multiple systems atrophy. As they prepare for necessary changes in home health care for Steve, we hold them all in love and support. And Ray Phelps Bowman had a successful placement of a pacemaker on Thursday. After some fine-tuning, he's on the mend, and we send healing thoughts as he recovers. As our UUs have been doing for well over 150 years, we are continuing to adjust to an ever-changing world and new ways of doing things. Through this time of adjustment, we ask for hope and patience, understanding and acceptance, and a renewed commitment of service to those in our lives, church, and community. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
I invite you to breathe deep the breath of life. Feel below you the earth and its ancient turning, and above you the sky, and beyond that the stars shining with their ancient light, holding you in this moment, this breath, you yourself made of earth and stars. Know that in this house you are named, you are known as beloved, as sacred, as welcome. I invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, source of love, God of many names and beyond all naming. It should be simple. All these things we learned in kindergarten, perhaps, or should have, or learned from our own heart or from some good companion. It should be simple. Kindness, affirmation, to affirm the beauty, the love, the joy in each other that shows up in a beautiful, wide array of expressions, of identities, of fashion, of personality, of work, of role, of the definition of family, and yet it is so often hard won. Anything that veers just a bit from what is expected, what is incorrectly called normal, must be defended or protected or claimed over and over again. Help us remember we were born for love and for joy. We were born for possibility. We were made out of earth and star and sacred dust. We were made for times to be bright and bold, and other times to be subtle or soft, to be full expressions of our humanity. Help us remember the soul is always meant to live free and to live proud. We hold in our hearts this day all those who suffer in mind, in body, or spirit. I invite you to bring the names you're holding in your own heart this day in joy or sorrow, celebration or concern, and silently or aloud now in this time to speak their names. For all the names spoken and unspoken, may we be forever grateful for the fabric, the strands that hold us all in love and strength. These words of meditation come from Wendell Berry. Within the circle of our lives, we dance the circle of the years, the circle of the seasons within the circles of the years, the cycles of the moon within the circles of the seasons, the circles of our reasons within the cycles of the moon. Again, we come and go, changed, changing. Hands join and unjoin in love and fear, grief and joy. The circles turn, each giving into each and into all. Only music keeps us here, each by all the others held. In the hold of hands and eyes we turn in pairs that joining each to all again, and then we turn aside, out of the sunlight gone, into the darker circles of return. May it be so. Amen. In addition to the offering, I invite you to visit the table in the Commons this week, either after service or after the Maypole, hosted by our wide welcoming team, who's hosting a variety of things throughout this month celebrating Pride, including signing up and volunteering for Rochester Pride. We need volunteers for our booth there or helping with setup, as well as forums around trans youth in Rochester and beyond, a variety of activities for this important work. So I invite you to visit that as well as collect for our monthly offering for P Fund. In gratitude, we'll receive the offering.
The first reading is an excerpt from the Blythdale romance by Nathaniel Hawthorne. A little further off, some old-fashioned skinkers were spreading a banquet on the leaf-strewn earth, while a long-tailed gentleman tuned his fiddle and summoned the whole motley rout to a dance before partaking of the festal cheer. So they joined hands in a circle, whirling round so swiftly, so madly, and so merrily, in a time and tune with the satanic music, that their separate incongruities blended all together, and they became a kind of entanglement. The second reading is an ode to Stonewall by D.W. It starts, the stillness within, the indignation without, an initiation of movement, the murmur of thought, building like lightning across the mind, above the embers of the heart, a desire, a want, a spark, bursting into phoenix fire, bolstered by love and diversity, a tapestry of hands and hearts, touching, believing, hoping, rising to be noticed, at last to be seen, respected, accepted. We exist, we strive, we yearn. Standing on many shoulders, remembering what has gone before, still much higher to climb, dreaming of what is to come. But in this moment, this breath, reveling in the spread of color, our symphony, our spectrum, our community, our pride, never ends.
And one day, she will come to you with fistful of glitter and an idea, writes a colleague of mine. Her face will shine with it and with certainty of your affirmation. And if your care is for the new couch, you will lose something precious. Irreplaceable. You will find glitter in the cushions for years, yes, but when you witness her grown and shining still, making something real and true, you will see that glitter rain down all over again, settling in hair, in eyelashes, in memory, in wide open heart. When I read that, I wondered, what if that's the point of it all? This life, our work, in our personal lives, our personal relationships, in our commitments to community or to the public good, what if it boils down to something as simple as get over your desire for a clean, neat, controlled, predictable life? Let joy and possibility spill out over everything so that who we are and who we can be can sparkle and shine everywhere. It's something I'm working on, getting to be less rigid with the presence of glitter. It's difficult for me, of tangled messes of joy and creativity. I can tell you I'm not that great at it. It's a growing edge, but as Mary Oliver wrote, hallelujah anyway, I'm not where I started. That's what any invitation to imagine the world differently is. It starts slowly, it keeps growing wider and wider still, maybe retracting at times, but you keep working on it. Or as Rilke wrote, trying to live your lives in ever-expanding circles. Nathaniel Hawthorne, writing in the Blythdale romance, has the narrator, Miles Coverdale, coming back to the utopian-style community he had left, and finding there the people dancing with music and frivolity and merriment, the scandal. And many thanks to Derek Robertson for a little context here for me. It helps having someone on staff who did their doctoral dissertation on Hawthorne and others. So thank you, Derek. So for the narrator, Miles, seeing people here basically at like a maypole dance was a horror to see. Stopping the work of the day into a type of masquerade, a place where community rather than the individual took center place, where the blending of identities and of lives, this entanglement, was something to fear because it swept away the autonomy of the individual at the center. Because to some, merriment and joy and frivolity, festival, carnival, pride, love, possibility, the shifting and sometimes eradicating rigid borders of norms of identity and gender and social customs and tradition, for some, that can seem like nothing less than satanic, writes Hawthorne, as the character expressed. It can feel so threatening to what feels normative, some fear of an erosion of some kind of twisted morality that seeks to limit freedom of expression, freedom of love, freedom of joy. It's not an old-timey story, is it? The story plays out every day in our culture, in our world, in our state houses, that puts individualism still at the center and moral rigidity in rising and concerning voice sometimes in the center of our public lives. It's as if joy and expression and expanding our assumptions are not a birthright for each of us, to be encouraged in community, to allow space for the fullness of our humanity. It's hard to imagine that there is in that something to be afraid of. It's hard to imagine. And at the same time, it's easy to understand how it happens because it happens over and over again through messages of fear and exclusion. But at the surface, it's hard to imagine that expressions of love and pride and diversity and joy could be understood as immoral, as threatening the moral fabric of society. Makes you wonder, what is it about joy? What is it about a community that finds its identity, finds its voice rooted in love in many different ways that break into joy at the risk of scorn, as if to dance? The author writes, joining hands in a circle, whirling around so swiftly, so madly, so merrily, blended together. What is it about joy that is so threatening to someone else? This is for us as much a social and justice and communal commitment as it is part of our spiritual, theological, and religious belief. We believe, and we do believe things. This is a faith of beliefs, even if they're not uniform. We believe in principles and practices in a type of defiant beauty, a type of beauty that exists in the face of scorn or judgment, that leans into diversity of identity and love of creativity, an expansiveness of possibility and merriment and pride in existence. It's like the old Unitarian phrase, we shall not be restrained in our beliefs because we dare not fence the Spirit. For our religious ancestors, to limit one's full humanity was like limiting the mystery and the love of God. Because we believe each of us is infused, born with inherent worth and dignity, that each soul is born sacred, not perfect, none of us are, but sacred, holy, beloved. that we are, each of us, a beloved child of spirit, of universe, of earth, of sky, of God, and that there is a larger love known by 1,000 names that holds us and names us as sacred. A type of love that casts down rigidity, that invites us to live more deeply into how creative and expressive humanity can be. And that the different ways that we love, that we live, that we dress, the ways we express who we are, the pronouns we use or don't use, the social roles we like to play or don't like to play, they are all a blessing. And the choice is a blessing, and the identity is a blessing. Most of you know, and it's important to remember, that Pride for LGBTQIA+ folks didn't begin as simply a nice festival. And in some ways, it's a mixed bag by how corporate it has become. Good to have wider circles of support in society, to be sure, but its roots were far more radical, of course. It was much less about free tote bags from Target or 3M. But it began as a riot, resistance against police brutality. The Stonewall Inn over 50 years ago, fighting back against common raids among law enforcement on gay bars. It was a fierce rebellion against the rigidity of culture, against the violence of law enforcement, against suppressed expression of joy and love. Sometimes to protect beauty and the right to joy, you have to be defiant. It starts, writes the poet in honor of Stonewall, it starts the stillness within, the indignation without, the initiation of movement, the murmur of thought, a desire, a want, a spark bursting into phoenix fire, bolstered by love and diversity, a tapestry of hands, of hearts, believing and hoping, still much higher to climb, dreaming of what is yet to come. Our symphony, our spectrum, our community, our pride never ends. There's something about the circle, something about the movement in this poetry, that motion of the maypole and community, the entanglement of ribbon, the dance of vibrant color and light, this reveling in a spread of color as if the world comes to life in a new and different way. Sometimes in the pursuit and the work of justice, there can be so much to weigh us down. Systems and histories and complexities and norms, a type of weight on the soul that makes it hard to move, hard to hope, hard to get up to the day. There are movements, though, that we know that have found ways to break through the dismalness of despair in their work, like the phrase attributed to feminist and activist Emma Goldman, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be in your revolution." She didn't say that exactly, it turns out, but the sentiment is still hers. And what she actually wrote was inspired that simplifies t-shirt phrase is just as important. She wrote this: "At dances, I was one of the most untiring and gayest. One evening, a young boy took me aside with a grave face, and he whispered to me that it did not behoove an agitator to dance, that my frivolity would only hurt the cause." She says, "So I grew furious at the interference of this boy. I told him to mind his own business. I did not believe that a cause which stood for a beautiful ideal, for release and freedom from conventions and prejudice, should demand the denial of life and joy." She said, "I want freedom and the right of self-expression, everybody's right to beautiful and radiant things." Circling round and round, through generations and times and places and movements, people have found their way to frivolity as a birthright for beautiful and radiant things, to a full spectrum of color and light and possibility. And the reason these movements are insistent on joy, that it is an essential part of the work, is it grounds us in our humanity. It grounds us in relationship and in beauty. It's not only about care for the soul, self-care in justice work, which is essential to lighten the load and the burden of oppression, which will wait for you and always be there when you want it. Because we know if you're too weighted down that you can't move, your soul can't find light, then you can't do your part for the cause either. But beyond that ethical necessity of care of oneself and others, joy must be infused to movements for justice and change. because it grounds us in the very things we're working to protect. It reminds us of the point of it all, that we are working to protect beautiful, radiant abundance in life. All the work, all the struggle of mind, body, and soul. If we forget the why, for why we're working so hard for a more just and equitable world, then the work becomes more like a dirge than a vibrant march or a parade or a dance. Remembering what has come before, dreaming of what is yet to come, writes the poet, this is the work we're called to do. Messy? Yes. Hard? Overwhelming? Yes. But perhaps, if we hold the image that beauty can be defiant in the face of rigidity, of a world trying to limit the ways we live and we love, it can be more like a tangle of a maypole dance, messy and bumping into each other, needing to bob and weave literally to make our way around the circle, to keep ourselves and each other safe from harm, to be surrounded and wrapped, tangled up in a full spectrum of color and of life and of vibrancy, knowing that what we are working for is joy and radiance and beauty, knowing that joy and beauty, too, is sometimes what the work must be. The hymn is De Caloris. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing. invite you, as you're comfortable, to place a hand on your heart or toward the sky or the earth in gratitude. Even the words speak of a little bit of rain blessing our frivolity. Even if there are storm clouds near or distant, there's also bright, shining sun everywhere. May we soak that in and be nourished by all the work before us and yet to come. May it be so. Amen.